Hi Year 4 and welcome back to our second lesson of outdoor learning this half term, all about reduce, reuse and recycle. Right, I'm just going to share my screen and then we can get started. Fantastic. Right, I'd like you to have a quick think if you can remember from last week, reduce, reuse and recycle. What do we mean by those three terms? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to have a think. Excellent. So when we reduce something, we use less of the resources that we use less resources to begin with. That's the first thing. We can do that by buying less and by using things such as reusable carrier bags when we go shopping, and that means that we don't need to get more when we go out. So that's reduce. Reuse is turning something that we already have into something else. Okay, so for example, you might have just finished a tub of butter and instead of throwing that tub away, you wash it out and then you use it to put soup in for your packed lunch, for example. And recycle is when you have already bought something, you can't reuse it and you put it in the recycling, it gets taken away to a recycling plant and it gets changed chemically or physically into something else. Okay, and that is recycle. And these are the 3 R's of sustainability. So we learned quite a few facts last week. We learned that the UK produces 220 million tonnes of waste every year, and that's 7.4 million tonnes of that waste ends up in landfill every year. So I started to explore what is going on in the London Borough of Brent, and I'm interested in Brent because that is where Ark Franklin Primary Academy is. Okay, it's in the London Borough of Brent. And this is what I found. I found that Brent Council sends 6,126 tonnes of card and paper and 5 tonnes of plastic all the way across the other side of the world to China and the Far East in order to recycle them. And it also sent 22 tonnes of plastic and 17 tonnes of plastic to either EU countries or to countries outside of Europe. So Brent is doing a lot of recycling. Some of it doesn't happen in Brent or even in the UK. Some of it gets shipped abroad and gets recycled somewhere else, but they are doing a lot of recycling. So then I thought, does Ark Franklin recycle? And then I realised Ark Franklin doesn't recycle, and I thought, oh, why is that? So I asked around and I found out that Brent Council do not take recycling from schools, and I was shocked. I cannot believe that Brent Council doesn't collect recycling from schools, because we produce so much waste and recycling in Ark Franklin. Think of all the paper that we use and all the card, that it's not possible for us to recycle unless Brent Council can come and pick it up for us and take it away to be recycled. And then I thought, I wonder how much waste we produce every year in our schools. And what I discovered, and this was a kind of an estimate, but I discovered that in primary school, there is about 45 kilograms per pupil every year of waste. And just to give you an idea, a bag of flour, a normal size bag of flour, weighs about 1 kilogram. Okay, so think about that. So there will be 45 of those bags of waste, okay, per pupil every year. So that is a lot of waste, and most of this waste is either food waste or paper and card. And I was thinking, well, we could definitely recycle paper and card waste. So what can we do about it? So Tulip Siddiq is the MP that represents the area where the school is. So they represent Brent, Bronsbury Park, Kilburn and Queen's Park. Okay, so she is the Member of Parliament. She sits in the House of Commons, and I thought, wow, she's got quite a lot of influence. She's got a lot of power. Maybe we can write to her and explain the situation and ask her to write to Brent Council. The other people we could write to is we could maybe write directly to Brent Council and say, why are you not picking up recycling from schools? Okay. So today we are going to be writing our letter to either Tulip Siddiq or to Brent Council, and it's up to you, whichever you think would have the most influence. So we're going to do it in 3 paragraphs, and the first paragraph is going to be, why are we writing? All right, because we need to explain to the person who's reading it, why are we writing to them? So we need to explain who we are, we need to explain why we're writing to them, and what are we after? What do we want? So this is the paragraph that I have written. Dear Miss Siddiq. Now, if you want to write to Barnet Council themselves, you could just write, Dear Sir or Madam, because we don't know a specific person in Barnet Council to write to. Okay, but we do know who the MP is. So it's up to you. You can either write to Miss Siddiq, our MP, or you could write to somebody in Barnet Council and write, Dear Sir or Madam. I am a pupil from Ark Franklin Primary Academy in Brent. If you want to, you can give your name, all right, but you don't have to. You can just say that you're a pupil. And then I need to explain, why am I writing? I am writing to you to discuss recycling in my school. I have recently discovered, to my astonishment, that the reason we do not recycle it in my school is because Brent Council does not collect recycling from schools in our area. So that's why I'm writing. And remember, this is a persuasive letter. We need to either persuade Miss Siddiq or the person who's reading it in Brent Council to listen and act on what we are saying. So what do we want? So this is what I have written. I would like you to raise this with Brent Council as a priority and find out if Brent Council can collect the recycling from my school. So that's what we want. We want Brent Council to start collecting recycling from our school. Now we're going to move on to the second paragraph, and this is all about statistics. So we're going to give lots of numbers and reasoning explaining why we think this. So we're going to give some statistics about the waste produced in the UK. So this can be some of the statistics that we talked about last week, or some of the statistics about the schools that the waste that we just talked about from schools just now. You might also want to research your own statistics about waste. That's absolutely fine too. Then we need to talk about the waste that schools produce, and that a lot of this waste could be recycled because a lot of school waste is paper and card. And then we need to explain that the reason that these things aren't being recycled is because Brent isn't recycling school waste. And the final thing is, we might want to do more generally why it is important in terms of the environment to recycle. So here's a part of my second paragraph. Did you know that 7.4 million tonnes of waste ends up in landfill every year in the UK? Can anyone tell me what type of question that is? I'm using a specific type of question that's often used in persuasive arguments. Excellent. It's called a rhetorical question, and no one's actually going to answer it, but it gets people thinking, and it's often used when you're trying to persuade someone of something. So now I'm going to explain what happens because Brent's not picking up the recycling. As Brent does not pick up recycling from my school, this means all our paper and cards that could be recycled ends up in landfill sites. So now we need to explain, so what? So what if it ends up in landfill sites? So we're going to explain how this is going to affect the environment. So I've written, this is terrible for the environment and also leads to increased deforestation. All right, so deforestation is when we cut down forests, and one of the reasons that we do that is to make paper. But actually, if we use recycled paper, if we send our paper to recycling and recycle paper, we will have to cut down less forests. Now I'm going to go really specific, and I've said one primary school alone creates about 28,000 kilograms of waste a year. Now, you might also want to explain why it's important to recycle more generally. All right, so I've just left the question there, and you can write another paragraph or another few sentences about why you think it's important to recycle. Finally, you have your conclusion, and essentially this is you repeating all your main points, but really succinctly and to the point. So repeat what you would like to happen and repeat why you would like this to happen. And this is what I have written. I therefore believe you need to intervene in order to ensure Brent Council collect the recycling from the school. If Brent begins to collect the recycling from the school, we will be able to recycle the paper, and this will not end up in landfill sites. Okay, so I'm giving a clear chain of events. If Brent starts recycling and starts picking up our recycling, we can then put our paper and cards in the recycling, and it will not end up in landfill sites. And then I've written one final sentence. Thank you for your help, and I look forward to hearing from you shortly. That's really important because that shows that you would like a response. Okay, you are really serious, you are serious about this matter, and that you are expecting a response from them. Fantastic. Okay. I am very much looking forward to reading your letters on Seesaw, and what I'll do is if we get some really fantastic persuasive letters, I will make sure that I either send them to the MP or I send them to Brent Council. Okay, so just make sure they're fantastic quality, and then we can send some of them off to our Member of Parliament or to our council. So Year 4, next week you are going to be back in school, and I am so excited to meet you all. So just before we go, because we're doing reduce, reuse, recycle, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to see if you have got anything in your house that you would normally recycle that we can use for a project at school. So, for example, I usually recycle my bottles from my milk. That would be perfect. So you could recycle something like that. You could recycle something like your egg carton, or a punnet like these. These are perfect, okay, for what I would like us to do for our project when we get back into school. All right, so a punnet of Grapes often comes in something like this, and maybe mushrooms often come in something like this. You could also bring in something like a cereal box, but with the plastic bag in, and I will be explaining more next week. All right, if you are bringing something like a milk bottle in, please, please, please make sure that it's really rinsed very, very well, because we're not going to be using it for a couple of weeks. All right, and if we don't rinse it nicely, when we open the lid, it is going to be very smelly. So make sure you give all your things a good wash before you bring it in, and I will make sure your teachers have a big black sack in your classroom so that they can collect any of the recycling that you are bringing in. No glass, okay? No glass, please. Just plastic, and if you have egg cartons and things like cereal boxes. Fantastic, Year 4. Right, as I said, really looking forward to meeting you, and I will see you next week.